Hello and welcome to What Makes This Run So Great. I've got my very own teammate here, Joey Sauerland, the reigning USPSA Limited National Champion. Joey, welcome, sir.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, Travis.
Absolute pleasure. You just came back from winning the Caribbean Open, correct?
That's right. That's right. First off, amazing match. People should make a point of making it out to that match in the future. Yes. So I
Awesome.
won limited. I won limited division there. And there was a lot of really good shooters there this year. JJ was there, Nils was there, Mason Lane was there. A lot of really good shooters were at that match.
I noticed, okay, you won limited.
Hmm.
I know in particular this one stage, you won this stage combined overall, shooting your limited gun, iron sights. What power factor were you running?
I was running about 173 power factor
Nice.
and yeah.
Okay, beautiful. This stage run is pretty awesome. I want to bring it up now. Let's go third person first to get our viewers acclimated with the stage before we talk about it here.
Cool.
We got it up, Joey. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Woo! That was smoking. Wow, wow, my friend. We have another angle. I want to bring up this as well. Let's check out your first person view here.
Are you ready? Stand by. If you're finished.
Woo!
Boom.
Blazing.
All right. All right, I've got some things that I want to say about this stage and why it was a bind stage win, shooting against some other many-time national and world champions. So this is something that I've been getting really into lately in my training, and it's almost it's tough to describe because it's not an exact technique. There's a lot of little things that go into it. Um, but I think it's more easy to understand and train as a vibe, as one kind of broad goal, and that is you want to shoot the stage not the fastest, but the way that takes the least time. Let that sink in for a second. I'm gonna say it again. I didn't shoot this stage the fastest. I definitely shot it the way that takes the least time. And when I say that, I'm not talking about stage planning. I'm not talking about, I started at this position instead of this one and took this target from that position. What I'm talking about is, and this is why it's kind of complex, because a stage plan would be easy to describe the differences, but it's more of a vibe. Let's go ahead and play the video again. I'd like you to pause it between
There we go. Slow motion.
called makeup shot turned Charlie into an alpha. Maybe not necessary, but better to have and not need than need and not have for sure. Um,
I
I
have an
yeah.
old saying. Can I tell you an old saying I have?
Oh yeah, let me hear it.
Okay. I'd rather have three hits on a target than one.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. So I called a leftward possible delta, and I took
Okay.
a called makeup shot. But that's beside the point of what we're trying to get to. So let's keep it running.
Okay. Oh, good call. Very quick.
Double stack, ran over there into steel. Boom. All right, so. Uh, Firstly, this is where the first little bit comes in, and this is something that most people are already at least in tune with a little bit, and it's something that can really be trained in dry fire movement training. It's a big thing that we work on in my 1 day class on training, but having the gun ready when it gets there. So you can run over to the other side as fast as you want, but it's going to be really hard to run so fast that it's going to make up for not having the gun ready once you get there, especially when you're entering, those were poppers at, I don't know, 17-ish yards maybe. So, it'd be very easy to spend an entire second or more bringing your gun up from, from stomach height to those targets and then getting an acceptable sight picture versus having the gun ready when it gets there. Go ahead and play it
That's
again, and I want everyone to
yeah.
pay pay attention. I mean, the the two most important things between that second position with the steel and the next paper position, and then the next paper position to the other side. I want you to pay attention, basically, to just my eyes and the gun. You can't see my eyes, but look at my head and the gun. Got the steel.
Beautiful.
All right, so
Let's look at that again.
boom, yeah. So
I'm seeing here you have your eye path is clear and distinct
yeah,
towards the next position. You're
yeah,
very explosive getting out of the first position. You're developing good force production, especially in the mud. But I want our viewers to pay what you're talking your overarching concept here. Look at how quickly the gun goes off on a 17-yard piece of steel as he's acquiring this position. He still has a little bit of momentum. You see that his body is slightly moving and having the gun ready to go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that's one part of it, and I want to get to the next in between position. So from the steel to that next paper on the other side.
I want our viewers to pay attention to when his gun goes off on this 17-yard steel, how early it goes off, and his body still has a little bit of momentum. Watch this. Boom. Beautiful.
So firstly, I'm able to leave on that steel after the second hit on the steel because I was calling my shots on the steel, which is huge. I knew the bullet was going to hit the steel as I called that shot.
Yeah.
It looks like I'm leaving right at the ping, but my eyes had already started to leave. The gun had already started to disengage the steel a little bit. Anyway, so between these two positions, this is where I really want to start talking about it. Right there. Go ahead and pause it. So it would be very easy. What feels fast is usually what's higher physical effort, right? So sprinting really hard, pumping your arms. That feels fast. If you shoot a stage and you think to yourself, I'm going to shoot this stage really fast. That's usually, aside from pulling the trigger fast and getting worse hits, when it comes to between positions, which is a huge piece of time consumption in our sport, between positions, it feels faster to try to run really fast, pump your arms, run harder with your legs and your feet. It feels faster to do that, and it definitely takes more time. 99% of the time, it takes more time to do that, right? I'm going to take the gun down. I'm going to break the gun down. I'm going to focus mainly on the ground where I'm going, which isn't unimportant. If there's a fault line I need to not go over or something, then that's not unimportant. But they get really focused on, I'm going to stop what I'm doing with my gun, and I'm going to run over there really fast because I want this to be fast. And then once I get there, then I'll resume what I'm doing with the gun. So I'm only about 1.5 big athletic steps from that position. And I'm already, visually, I've been on the next target already for some time. My gun is already indexing on the target. And so instead of stop what I'm doing with the gun and run over there and then resume what I'm doing with the gun, the only thing that I'm trying to do, and this isn't something I'm thinking about during the stage, this is something that I've ingrained mostly just through dry fire training with movement, but all I'm trying to do is put the gun, first my eyes and then the gun, on the next target. And usually if you do that, if that's your goal, instead of I'm going to run over there really fast so it feels fast and I think it's faster, if just putting your eyes and the gun on the next target is your goal, that's probably going to happen about as soon as it can, and your body's probably going to do about the least amount of movement and work that's possible to get that done. So most people were, and I didn't get to see any other grandmaster level shooters shoot this stage, but I've only left that position by 1 or 2 steps. Most people were breaking their grip on the gun, running up there into the middle of that next position with the 2 walls, and then resuming what they were doing. And a lot of them were running, you know, I mean, everyone knows covering extra distance is a time consumer, but I'm not even in the next position yet. But my eyes and my gun are already on the next target. So go ahead and let it play. I've got that target.
Excellent.
Boom. And
Excellent.
so this is partly done in the stage playing, but I'm always trying to make notes. Where do I actually have to move? So from this target, this paper one to the next one, a lot of people who I saw shooting this stage, they made that 2 positions, right? So they ran left over to that first paper after the steel, and then they stopped what they're doing with the gun, and then they ran right, and then went over to those other ones. If you quit thinking about, I'm going to run fast, I'm going to run over there fast so I can get there faster so it feels fast with higher physical effort, and you just focus on put the gun on the next target, usually you're going to be able to do that with the smallest amount of movement required. The gun's already on the target, and then transition over to the other targets without having to go over to any other new position. Go ahead and let that whole middle part play with the transition. Boom.
Beautiful.
So the same exact thing happens. Let's go to that double stack on the right side.
Okay, and this is in
eyes and gun on the target. There's no need for any movement. And then
perfect.
let's go ahead and for this part, can we switch over to that same part between that right side double stack into the reload? Can we get that from the GoPro?
Absolutely. Outstanding idea. Okay.
That's good right there. Yep.
So
Yeah,
you've made this very, like, it's almost a 90-degree transition.
Yeah. Let's actually take
let's go back.
Take it back so we can see that part as well from the steel first paper.
From your view, let's look at your move over to the steel position. Okay, guys, pay attention that, yeah, Joey has the gun up, line of sight, aimed through the fence at that popper before he gets there. Boom. And the gun is going off almost as soon as it's exposed, as soon as it's a clean shot. And he's calling that shot beautifully. That second shot call, you process it so quickly. Now he's looking, what we've been talking about. Yeah, you're looking to that next position, but you're keeping both hands on the gun, and it's almost like a pure target transition. As opposed to thinking of it breaking down and doing a sprint, you're almost doing a pure target transition, even though you're taking 3 or 4 steps.
You're so right on the money, Travis. So in my 1-day class, one thing that we're doing is we're working on the skill of basically movement speed, getting the gun where it needs to go. And usually what we find out, what gets people breaking their par times is, like I was just saying, among other things and among other training tools that we use to get this, a lot less I'm going to try hard to run over there, and a lot more just putting the gun on the next target. So we already talked about this one and watched it third person. Same thing. It's just a transition.
Beautiful.
If it can be just a transition, we want to make it as close to just a transition as possible.
I love it, Joey. And I have a question for you from a perception or a feel or a kinesthetic perspective. Going from position to the steel to the third position, did it feel like you were expending a lot of effort, or did it feel closer to effortless?
No, see, that's the thing. Most people who shoot our sport, you can imagine that if your goal is, I need to run over there really fast, then that's what you get. But most people also know if you're indexing on a target, even if you don't do much movement training, which you should, even if you don't do much movement training, that greatly affects what your body does, right? If you're trying to put your dot on a piece of paper or a piece of steel, that greatly affects what your legs and your feet decide to do without you thinking about it. And so what that really does is it, for lack of a better term, it handicaps, it retards your movement. So as soon as I know where that target is and I'm trying to put my gun on it, my body is already, instead of being in the process of, I need to run over there really fast so I can shoot it sooner, my body's already in the process of, I need to allow my legs and my feet to stabilize this gun so I can start shooting this target, which is actually what we want to happen sooner, right? So what's faster is to run faster, right? I'm going to go over there, I'm going to run faster, and when I get there, I'm going to shoot it faster. That's faster, but what takes less time is I just put my gun on the next target, and my body was already accommodating, stabilizing my sights on that target with the minimum amount of movement required, because I'm focused on putting my gun on the next target and not on I'm going to run over there and then shoot it fast. And also, on this stage too, there's one really impressive split, but other than that,
Yes.
I mean, I'm shooting 173 power factor iron sights on most of these targets are somewhere in the teens of yards away, and there's no shoots on a lot of them too. You know, so like I'm not shooting
Big time.
fast splits on these targets at all, right? That's not where my time is coming from on this stage, except for one really spicy split that we'll see. But let's go ahead and look at, so same thing. So I already talked about how from that second position with the steel to that third position on the paper, by just trying to put my gun on the target instead of thinking about running over there, that made me decelerate. That made that target get shot much sooner, even though it wasn't faster.
Nice. Yes.
And so now,
beautiful. And you know, there's two layers of walls there. That's not the easiest target to acquire. That's another advantage with you being prepared and having the gun up.
this next part, from the double stack to the first low target, I do a reload in between, and reloads, same thing we already talked about. I'm going to keep harping on the same thing. Especially if I know that I'm going to do a reload, that makes it a lot more tempting to run over there. Like, oh, I'm going to do a reload, right? I can use this time to cover a lot of ground. And again, sometimes that's the right answer. You know, sometimes I got to cover, 12, 15 yards of ground, and, I'm going to do that reload, and I'm going to run over there as fast as I can. That is the case sometimes. But here, that next target, it's a low target through this port, but it's almost visible from this position right here. Just like that single paper was already almost visible from where the steel was. It was almost visible. So instead of running over there, I'm just trying to put my gun on it. So even though I have to do a reload in between, I'm not focused on running over there. Even though I have to do a reload, I'm still in my brain, and this is mostly a subconscious thing from doing a good amount of movement training with this as the goal. But even with the reload, watch how from this double stack, I'm really just putting the gun on that next piece of paper with no extra running anywhere in between.
Beautiful.
Let's watch that. Let's watch that one more time, and we can watch it in third person, but we know
Yes.
there's really only, I think, maybe like 1.5 steps in between those two. Yeah, 1.5 steps, maybe, a side step and then a cross step, or a cross step and then a side step.
That's right.
It would be very easy to make that a new position where I need to run over there while I'm reloading my gun, and then go ahead and we'll let it play from that port to the next port. If I had done if I had run into that port, right? If I had thought I need to run over there really fast and then shoot those targets really fast, I would have been much deeper in that port, and I would have had to not only move further sideways, but also back up to get out to that next port. So by trying to do it fast, I would have generated extra movement, extra ground coverage, which would take more time. That would have required me then undoing that extra movement and extra ground coverage to get to the next spot. And so instead of any notion of I'm going to go over there, run over there fast, just putting the gun on the next target. And usually, if that's your goal, the minimum amount of movement required for that is what results. Let's go ahead and watch from the double stack and then all the way through both ports.
Perfect. You get to this first The first target in this port that you really like, you smash a crazy double on it. You get there so quickly. You're going from a slight squat. You drive with
Yeah.
the gun gets there, boom. Awesome.
Boom. Boom. And so it's obviously the same thing in between ports, but I'm just moving the gun to the next target.
It's a
Most
yeah.
people made, one port, the port on the right. I think most people shot through that one first. That's one position, and then the port on the left, that's another one. And I need to stop what I'm doing with the gun and run over. There's obviously not much ground to cover, but a lot of people were doing a
Yeah.
whole big old shuffle step over there and generating a lot of extra movement to go somewhere. And all they had to do was put the gun on the target.
And then in order to expose those last two targets, you do a slight
Yeah.
step there during the transition.
Yeah, it was during shooting. It was during that split on the target. What my feet were moving, weren't they?
We'll give it a little volume here. Yep.
Um,
Beautiful.
and so obviously that close target is a target that can be shot while moving because it's very close. But the point was instead of my first thing on my checklist being I need to go over to the next port, the first thing on my checklist was I need to put my gun on that next target. And so even though I hadn't even gone to the next port yet, my gun was already on that target, and so I let it go off.
Beautiful. Watch this, guys.
Boom. All right, let's get the GoPro video and see that real spicy split.
Yeah, I see that.
Thank you. Two alphas. You have two alphas.
It barely picks it up. It almost sounds like a single on the GoPro.
I believe that it was a .09. I truly believe that. Say too much. Let's watch it.
And Joey, this brings up a point. If you could speak to this, you have phenomenal recoil management. Okay, this is 173 power factor 40. I'm going to put you on the spot. If there was one thing or one aspect, an actionable item that a shooter could do to improve his recoil management, what would it be?
So I like to think when we use the word management, a good manager, he works with his coworkers. He works with the people he manages to help them do a better job. A good manager isn't someone who tries to force them to do something better. I think most people are not shooting 173 power factor iron sight guns. The most difficult recoil in the sport. Uh, but I would approach your recoil management with that because there's been times in the past when I thought my goal was to stop my gun from recoiling. I thought that was the goal of my grip was to stop my gun from recoiling. And so, I was really trying to smash the gun with my hands. And not saying that I don't have a firm, strong grip on the gun. I definitely do, but my goal in my grip previously was to do a bad job of managing it and force it to do what I wanted by smashing it with my grip, putting all kinds of thumb rests on there so I could try and stop it from recoiling. Especially, I mean, if you're shooting 9mm, don't tell me that your gun recoils because it doesn't. But 173 power factor iron sight gun, that gun is recoiling a lot, and it's going to recoil no matter what I do. Those sights are going to go up, they're going to leave, and I will need to wait for them to come back to where I want. And so the best thing I could do is be very familiar with the return of those sights and have it be consistent. So I'm not trying to force my coworkers to do. I'm trying to be familiar with their work habits so I can predict what they're going to do. That's my perception. That's different because again, 173 power factor iron sight gun. There's no way to stop it from recoiling. There's very little ways to make it even recoil less than it does. But So all I can do, because it's so strong in its recoil, all I can do is work with it. You know, like a good manager, I got to work with it, not try and force something else.
That's beautiful. And I brought up this view because I think it illustrates what I'm talking about. Look at that. The way the gun returns, the way the gun is so neutral, and it's very flat for a 173 power factor. Look at that, guys. I want you to notice his torso and his spine angle is slightly forward, maybe 8, 10, 12 degrees, but he gets no movement up here in his traps and his shoulders. Okay, it's not pushing him at all. So, and you'll notice a good knee bend. His center of gravity is low. So he's definitely, I talk about using the lower body to also improve your recoil management. And you're doing that as well. But that's really impressive. I like that. Great answer.
Yeah, I would also say that, like you just said about my upper back and stuff. Your grip is everything from the tip of your fingers, I think, all the way to your scapular muscles, on your upper back. So your grip is, it's not just your hands, your wrists, and your forearms. It's your elbows, your upper arms, your shoulders, and your upper back, right? So that recoil is getting absorbed and distributed through that whole system. And so one thing that I'm also trying to do in my dry fire training is I'm trying to bring, so in my live fire, right? So for anyone listening who doesn't know, I'm a grandmaster national champion. I think my lifetime live fire round count for practice rounds, doesn't include match rounds. Well, I've been shooting for 4 years though, so it's not a crazy number of matches. My lifetime practice round count is I think it's at like 40 something thousand now, like low 40s.
It's
And
nothing.
one of the things that I try and do, because if I know that I'm going to dry fire a lot, the main difference between dry fire and live fire is the recoil of that gun and what my body has to do differently to work with that recoil and get what I want from the behavior of the gun when it is recoiling. And so one thing that I found is that grip, that's not just my hands and my forearms, but it's also my upper arms, my shoulders, and my upper back. That, let's call that a platform, right? That's a shooting platform that I have set up that allows the gun to operate well and consistently and predictably. I need to bring that platform to each position. So this is good. Let's watch the first three positions again.
Okay.
Double stack, steel, and then that first paper in slow motion. Platform is set up. I'm arriving with that same platform set up. And watch how I put that platform on the target.
Beautiful.
So what I didn't let happen was the lean to get on that target around the wall. And this is something that can really just be trained in dry fire with movement and stuff set up. You see, I'm torquing my spine so that above my middle spine, right, that whole shooting platform from my shoulder blades, shoulders, upper arms, lower arms, and hands, even though I'm having to torque this way, I'm letting my midsection and my hips and legs do the work of torquing me around that wall so that I can have that same, I'm calling it a platform, that same grip platform that gets me what I want from the behavior of that gun. I can have that platform set up and arriving on that target as soon as possible. And not because I'm doing it fast, but because I'm not doing anything extra in between putting the gun on the next target and having that platform set up when the gun does get there.
Important distinction right there, guys. Listen to that. That was really good. Another thing with regards to that, Joey, as I found with students is that keeping that platform more static, they're able to acquire the sights when they get to that next position quicker as well. And
Yes.
you're developing that torque from, like you said, your lower body is more like a static. It comes around, it builds it so you build it fast, and you're able to get that shot off earlier.
Yeah. And that's something that can really be trained in good quality dry fire training. If you know what that platform needs to feel like for it to work, you got to find that out in live fire. You do have to go find that out in live fire, right? It's going to be specific to you and your gun. There's some basic grip fundamentals that I think apply to everyone. For example, more support hand pressure than firing hand pressure. I think everybody would agree with that. That's pretty blanket to everyone. But beyond that, you know, if you're shooting a stock Glock with factory ammo versus a steel frame compensated 2011 with custom hand loaded ammo, and then you got, you know, you got a 130-pound female versus a 250-pound guy who benches 400 pounds, what that platform setup that gets you the good behavior from your specific gun feels like can be completely different from person to person, aside from some basic fundamentals that do apply to everyone. And so you need to go in your live fire, you need to find out what that platform is, what it feels like to do that, because there's a whole bunch of little things, right? That's why I say you need to find out what it feels like, because you could fill pages of information with, well, you know, the tips of the fingers on my support hand and, you know, the heel of my hand are pinching inward, and I've got my elbows extended, you know, to this degree, and I've got this much more pressure in the pinky of my firing hand, and this is how shrugged my shoulders are. You know, you could fill a page of information with all these tiny details, and I think that would be a waste of your time, right? You need to go out,
Agreed.
you need to find out what that platform feels like.
That's right.
Once you know what it feels like, then you can go replicate it at volume and make it normal for yourself.
That's
In
so
dry fire.
important.
In
In
dry
dry
fire.
fire, that's right. Yep. A really good point. A lot of it is awareness and just expanding that awareness and getting to know the feel of it and what it's, and then you can replicate it and you can do it when it hits the fan. So that's huge.
Yeah. So yeah, that's, if we tie those two things together, that shooting platform and just putting the gun on the next target, that's something that I'm training in dry fire a lot, and I don't have to think about when I'm shooting. Like when I'm shooting this stage, I'm not thinking about that shooting platform. I'm not thinking about just putting the gun on the next target. Those are things that I've ingrained through a large volume of high quality dry fire training, but that's really what's producing this stage win. I'd say there's if we can tie those two into one thing, and that one thing being putting that good shooting platform on the next target and not trying to run places and go there fast, but just doing nothing in between other than putting that good shooting platform on the next target and then calling every shot so I know I'm leaving only acceptable hits. I mean, that's a magic formula for, I think, a stage win right there. And I just did it well on this stage, and that's why this was a all divisions combined stage win.
Oh, perfect summary.
And
I love it.
I think I only dropped one Charlie on this stage.
Excellent. Joey, this is awesome. I know you got to get back to class, and we have several more stages to go through, which we'll be doing soon. And we're going to do some different types of stages, and to have your perspective is going to be absolutely amazing. Joey, thank you so much for your time today. It's been incredible.
Dude, absolutely, Travis. Good talk.
Guys, thank you for tuning back in. Y'all have a great day. Thank you.